back to Mountain Journey with Dr. Joe. Glad you could make it. Let's install a winch on this Polaris RZR 570. We're going to have to take apart some of these grill, fascia, probably this front assembly, and most of this is held in with T27 Torx bits. I've got that lined up right here, and we'll just start taking those out. On the corners we've got these little fancy plug-in connectors that really have to be kind of careful to take out. They're little plastic expansion plugs, and I have a variety of tools to kind of help me pull them out of there. There we go. That's it. So that's what they look like. Now we're at this point. Let's just take the light bulbs out, protect those, and then this whole front end should come out. Okay, we've got it lifted up. I have jack stands also as a safety feature, and we're going to use this winch mounting bracket kit. From KFI, which is composed of basically 3 metal parts. 2 that will basically be laid in this way, and this one, hopefully we can mount the Fairlead on it, or use this, or I bought an extra little base Fairlead combination that may be necessary. Okay, the installation of these bars is just a little bit tricky. Here's one of them. Put it through this slot. Here's the other one. And they go under a bar in the back, which I'll show you, and then the bolts will mount it through here. So it actually fits pretty well. And there's ample space above it, as you can see here, for the winch. Now let's look in the back. Let's look a little further back. This is where the bolt goes through this bar here, and I had to reach both arms around the radiator to secure this one, and we'll get this one in just a second. Again, it's a 3/8 inch bolt with a lock washer. And I believe I can, here's the hole, here's the bar, alright, we're going to hand hold this just for a minute. Here's one of the bolts, here's one of the bars, the bolt is right behind here. We have to move this tubing out of the way, and you can see the other bolt here, and here's the other bar. That is a little bit of a challenge, but now we've got both of these bars ready to go into these front holes, and that should be a lot easier. Okay, this hardware is all 3/8 ready to go. Let's see if we can get a washer on this bolt. Put the bolt through the opening here, maybe without dropping it. Or retrieve it if you drop it. There we go. And then a nylon nut, which we'll tighten in a second. Try to do the same thing through here. It's a little tight. I bet if I come around the other way it might be better. Washer and then a nylon nut. Awesome. We'll just tighten these babies up. Okay, these have been tightened. Now we're going to go back inside with a ratchet and try to tighten up the vertical bolts that are in the other end of these two brackets. Okay, this is the Fairlead mount that comes with this mounting kit. And if I had a really wide Fairlead, it would fit, but I don't. You can see this just doesn't fit, which is unfortunate. This fits into this area mounting here beautifully. That's great. But this winch won't fit on this unless I adapt it and put an extra plate. Also, these two bars back here are pretty wide, and the winch I have has these two mounting holes that are in the middle. So to fix both of these problems, I got this mounting plate which will allow the winch to mount on here. So to mount this winch, this Badlands winch, unfortunately the base is very narrow. It's not a really full-size winch, which would be better for this mounting system because the holes are wide apart. But you can purchase this little mounting plate. This is $5 from Harbor Freight, and the outside holes fit in the brackets that we placed. The two center holes here are the ones to mount the winch. But when the winch is mounted to this plate, it obstructs these holes. So I was going to use some flat beveled head screws so that it wouldn't interfere with this. But because and so I drilled those out. You can see that here. But I need to turn this plate around because the line that comes from the winch to the Fairlead on this mounting system goes down, and I was afraid it was going to interfere with this Fairlead mount area. So let's drill these out for a tapered bolt. These are the bolts that I'm planning on using because they'll fit flush underneath the plate of the winch, but I needed to drill out this chamfered or this tapered hole. You can see I did this here, and if you look at that chamfer, how nice and flush that bolt fits. But I need to turn this around, or else this Fairlead portion of the bracket is going to interfere with the cable. So we're going to drill these two holes out with this chamfer bit. This is a titanium oxide coated 82-degree bevel bit. It drills about a 90-degree angle that will fit exactly the taper of this bolt. I've chucked this bit up in a variable speed drill press. I have it at about 700 RPM because it's a fairly large bit. Then we'll put a little of this Tap Magic fluid, which should help with the cutting action. there's the tapered hole that we drilled with that. You can see that it fits pretty nicely with that bolt. Let's drill this second hole. I've sped it up a little bit to about 1,000 RPM. I think it'll cut better. So again, just to look in here, these bars were the ones that were installed, and the plate for the winch mounts on it. If you had a wide enough base on your winch, it could fit in these holes, but the winch I'm using needs a plate. So we're going to put the plate on this in these 4 holes, and then put the winch on that plate. Again, this is the plate going in. It's going to fit on like that, and we're going to put the 4 bolts in there. You can see we've got the plate on, or the mounting plate, and then we're going to put the winch on top of that and bolt it in. So the winch is now mounted in. This is the mounting plate. These are the bolts that are away from the base. I use grade 8 bolts for the winch, 5/16, holding it into the plate. They're very strong. And now to connect the Fairlead. Those bolts were a challenge, honestly. 2 hands going around completely blind, but I was able to do that, and I think you can too. My recommendation for a winch on this vehicle is to get a winch with a wider base that will fit readily into this mounting bracket without using an ancillary or an additional base like this. It would make it infinitely easier. So I brought the winch cable through this opening. This piece is going to bolt on here with 4 bolts, and then we're going to secure the Fairlead to the mounting plate. Okay, we're going to run the cable through the mounting plate for the Fairlead, and then through the Fairlead. And to get it through the Fairlead, I had to take one of the rollers off. Or we'll just put that back on. These are nice. They have nylon bushings, the rub surface. And then these are held in place with nylon lock nuts so they can spin freely. You don't want to tighten these too much. You want to be sure they spin really nice and freely. Okay, that's probably a little too tight. Yeah, that's spinning nicely, maybe just 1/8 of a turn. Yeah. Okay, great. Now let's mount this up. The Fairlead mounts to this bracket with these nice square head bolts. You can see the square opening here. They fit into this so they don't need a wrench to tighten up that backside. Then we'll just put a flat washer, then one of these nice nylon nuts here, and we'll just tighten those down. Do the same on the other side. Okay, we've got the Fairlead now mounted onto the bracket, and the bracket fits into 4 openings for these bolts. We'll set those in. Probably easier to get it from the other way because of the radiator. I'll do that here in a second. So there's the physical install. The 4 bolts with the nylon nuts and washers. The Fairlead. And now we just got to go and do the wiring, and we'll connect the wiring to the terminals of the winch, and we'll route those through the firewall directly to the battery. Because we don't have a switch, we have a remote control, and we'll position the receiver for the remote control somewhere up in this area in just a minute. So here we have the remote. I placed this rubber bumper here to protect the Fairlead to keep it smooth so the chain won't get messed up. I'll show you where I put the receiver and how we wired this. Here is the remote receiver that we wired in. It's been wired to the terminals of the winch, and I used very strong self-tapping screws that just went right into this plastic. Then routed the wires across, and I'll show you on the other side how we brought it into the battery. The battery is beneath the seat, so I've taken the seat out. These are the wires that we ran through some structural frame elements. They look very secure, and then attached them to the positive and negative leads. So the winch will work whether the engine is turned on or off, which might be desirable if you're ever in a tough situation. It will certainly run with the engine on, but also can run with it off, which I think is a benefit. Well guys, there's the finished product. The winch is installed. It's got a nice Fairlead. It clears this opening really well. Put that little rubber keeper on to protect the Fairlead. I think it'll work well. The wiring was fortunately just long enough. It routed right through underneath the body. I think it's protected pretty well, and it was basically just long enough, which is pretty nice. I hope you enjoyed this. Please subscribe, please click like, or please comment and criticize. If there's something I could do better, let me know. Anyway, until next time, Dr. Joe from Mountain Journeys. Be safe.